Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from around the world. Thank you to many of you who have been part of this program from the very beginning. We appreciate your commitment to this program and this initiative to engage South Sudanese in a conversation about the affairs of our nation. I'm always delighted to see many of you joining us and sharing your views. As I keep saying, this program is not a one-way conversation. It's really a conversation. It's not just one person talking, but it's us changing views, experiences, and figuring out how we can take our country forward. So I'm always grateful to those of you who have been tuning in consistently. As I keep saying, the only way we can build our country is to engage with one another, to have a conversation, and to hear each other's thoughts. We may not always agree, but we should always have a conversation. That is the only way in which societies can build consensus and move forward. So I'm grateful to those of you who are joining. Please make sure your voice is heard. Feel free to make a comment, share the video, and engage. Those of you who have also been making your own videos, whether you agree with us or you disagree with us, we are grateful to you, and we encourage you to continue to make sure that your voice is heard. So please, let's engage with one another. Let's make sure that this conversation is not just limited to this space alone, but we are able to encourage it to spread across the entire society of South Sudan. As I said, those of you who have tuned in, I'm asking you, if possible, to share the video. Share the video. You can share it directly on your wall. You can send it on WhatsApp groups. You can send it on Messenger. You can share it to groups. Whatever way that you can share it so that other South Sudanese people can have access to it and make their own opinions known, whether they agree with us, they disagree with us. We need that conversation. We need that engagement. The countries that move forward are countries in which citizens are encouraged to engage and participate. And one of the reasons why South Sudan has not been moving forward is because the citizens are discouraged from engaging in this kind of conversation. That is why Blue House exists and is a place where people are detained, especially those who make their opinions known about what is happening in the country. So those of you who are joining us today, our main topic really is to analyze an admission that President Salva Kiir made yesterday. This was very surprising, really, to us, because we didn't see it coming. He has been making all kinds of nonsensical statements since last year, if you remember, when the SPLM National Liberation Council endorsed him. I think it was December 2022, when Kwalmanyang was talking about how he, Salva Kiir, should rule for the rest of his life. When he finally came to the podium and he talked, the first thing he said was to claim that he has never failed the SPLM and he has never failed the people of South Sudan. This was shocking because those of us who have been watching the events in South Sudan know that the man, Salva Kiir himself, has been nothing but a failure for the most of his life. So we were shocked that he was so clueless about the reality of his own situation that he was claiming that he has never failed the SPLM and has never failed the people of South Sudan. As we mentioned several videos ago, SPLM failed to transform from a liberation movement into a political party, primarily because of Salva Kiir. Also, SPLA as an army has failed to transition from a rebel militia into a professional army. And this is primarily because of Salva Kiir as individual. Likewise, SPLM has failed to establish a government that actually have a bureaucracy, a government that functions, a government that can deliver for the people of South Sudan. So when he got on that podium and claimed that he has never failed the people of South Sudan, we were shocked. We were really shocked that he was claiming that. But now, yesterday, when he made the admission that he has fail, essentially. What he was saying was that there has been no real government in South Sudan, right? This was very surprising that he was actually able to say that, because that is what many of us have been trying to say for the last several years. We have been trying to claim that the president has failed in establishing a government. He has failed in establishing a coherent society. He has failed in establishing a society in which the rule of law reigns. And his supporters have been attacking us. They've been attacking those of us who are telling the truth to the people of South Sudan, who have been pointing out the shortcomings of South Sudan. We have been claiming that since the day that he took oath after John Garang died, Salva Kiir has deviated from the objectives that the SPLM-SPLA had articulated during the war. And instead, he was essentially establishing a system. That system he was establishing was nothing but a mafia, was basically a gangster, a system that was run by gangsterism, where he was surrounded by psychopaths, by relatives, and by thieves. That was essentially it. There was nothing beyond that. And this is what we've been claiming now for the last several years. And it's the reason why many of us have been calling for change, so that we can have a leader that can actually allow South Sudanese people to establish a government that function and that work for them. What has his supporters been doing? They've been busy attacking people, calling people names. His security agents, primarily the National Security Service, they've been busy arresting people, kidnapping people, assassinating people, creating all kinds of chaos and creating war. But now the man himself has finally admitted. He has finally admitted that he has failed to establish a government and that there has been no real government in South Sudan. That is the truth. And it's actually good that even though the man has been a failure, has always refused to accept any kind of responsibility for all the crises that he has created in South Sudan, it was refreshing for the first time to hear him admit. Because seriously, let's look at the facts. How can you claim that there is a real government in South Sudan? Let's just look at what is going on now. The issue of security. All the different communities in South Sudan are busy fighting each other. Communities are armed by the state, by the military, by the generals, and they are given ammunition, and they go and terrorize one another. They go and kill one another. And the government is not there to provide the rule of law. It's not even there to provide security. And he, the president, has been actually encouraging this. One of the examples we always cite was what he told the Dinka Boer community back in the days during the funeral of Deng Dao's mother. Our MP from Twitch East, Deng Dao, his mother died, and there was a funeral at his house. President Kiir was a guest. He came there, and this was only a few days after a lot of people had been killed in Jaleh, in Baidit, in Mar, by the Murle. And then he said to the Dinka Boer community that my in-laws, you are running with a spear. And he told us a story of a guy that was being chased by a lion and was carrying a spear. And then he was running. And then some of the bystanders were telling him, yo, you are running and you have a spear in your hand. And then he finally remembered that he had a spear in his hand, and he turned and then he speared the lion. So then he was telling us that my in-laws, you have a spear in your hand and you are running and you are supposed to spear the lion. Basically, he was telling to the Dinka Boer community, you have access to arms too, just like Murle. Why don't you arm yourself and then fight the Murle? Right? That's basically what he was saying. Can that actually be a statement of a head of state? Can someone who claimed to be a president of the whole country encourage his own citizens to be killing each other instead of allowing his government, if he had one, a government to actually come and contain the situation? No. And this is the same thing that he said when he formed that committee headed by Vice President James Waniga. He came and told the community and said, look, if you continue to fight, you are going to fight, and then the next one among you who run away or be chased by the other group, you will come to Juba. Yes, I will provide you protection, but you cannot call yourself men anymore, right? And I will use the security forces that I have here to surround myself and to protect myself, right? Which is essentially what he has done. If you look now all over the country, there are no security forces. There is no real military. There is no real police. There is nothing there. He's only in Juba, where he has surrounded himself with the tiger and with the national security just to protect his throne. Is that a government? Obviously it's not. When you see what is happening in Upper Nile State, when the Nuer and the Shulu community were fighting, people were fighting, people were killed, to the extent that the king of Shuluk was in imminent danger and had to flee his palace to come and hide in Juba. What happened? He sent a helicopter to go and pick him up and bring him to Juba. And then he got on a TV to claim that although the people who are fighting are South Sudanese and they are his fellow citizens, there is nothing he can do to stop the fight. And then at the same time, he sent a battalion of soldiers to Congo, to DRC Congo, to go and do peacekeeping mission, while his own people are killing each other in his own country. Is that a government? Again, you see what has been happening in Warab State and also in Lake State. People have been fighting each other there, killing each other. Communities will go and attack communities, especially the Dinka communities and the Nuer community. And then within the Dinka community, you have a Puk and a Wok that were fighting. You have the Pakam Agar fighting with Luanjang of Tony. And then fighting, the two groups also fighting with Gok community of Lake State, which are based in Chuaibat. And then all this chaos has been happening. When he went there to go and talk to his own people, what did he tell them? He said, my people, why are you fighting each other? If you love fighting so much, here is Nuer. Nuer is here. Yeah? Nuer is here on this side. Just go and fight them. Can that actually be a statement that a head of state make? Is that a statement that somebody who is purporting to run a government, would such a person make such a statement? No. It shows that this guy has essentially just been running a mafia, has been running a mafia state where the only objective is to steal the resources of South Sudan and build himself properties all over the world. Then look at what is happening with the sovereignty of South Sudan. Recently, the East African leaders, they fooled him. Yeah? They made him a buffoon by giving him this position of the chairman of the East African community. And then they got him to unveil a new map, a map in which Kenya has annexed the Ilemi Triangle. Yeah? Ilemi Triangle is bigger than Rwanda. It's a large territory that is bigger than some of the countries in Africa. It's bigger than, certainly bigger than some of the states here in the United States. And that whole territory, which is rich in oil, in water, in gold, and has some of the most fertile land in our country, that whole territory has been annexed by Kenya. Again, the whole side of central and eastern Equatoria, from the side of Keji, the side of Morobo County, and then the side of eastern Equatoria, especially around Chukudum. Even the place where the SPLM convention of 1994 was held, Moya Sukud, that place now has been annexed. Even the place where John Garang planes went down and John Garang died, now that place has been annexed by Uganda. And they made this buffoon of ours to come there and to unveil a new map in which those territories have been annexed by the government of Kenya and the government of Uganda. Is that really a government? Is there any government in the world that will give up its own territory? After all, what is the point of a government? That is another example of how finally he is right to actually say that there has been no real government in South Sudan. What he has been running is a gang with the objective of stealing the resources and murdering the people of South Sudan. Look on the side of healthcare. Healthcare. In South Sudan, there are no health facilities. He himself, the president, has been getting sick. And every time he gets sick, he runs away. Usually you go to Nairobi, then you go to South Africa, Lately, he has been going to Dubai. He's going wherever. A lot of his generals are dying. You know, just recently we lost General Maturichut in Juba, and it's because of these health facilities. It's not that because South Sudanese people somehow cannot live to be old. If you look in Japan, in many parts of the world, even here in America, people live to be 100 years. And it's because there is a system that has been established, especially a medical system that has been established, that take care of the seniors, that take care of the people of that particular country. Nyakol Matiang, who was a very popular musician in South Sudan, she died because simply they could not find an inhaler because she had asthma, and they could not find an inhaler. The same thing with John Lutt. John Lutt was the first, it was the governor of Lake State after the CPA was signed, and he was the director of the military intelligence for many years. John Lutt also died because they could not find an inhaler. How many generals have we lost? Because simply the medical facilities in Juba has not been built. Ambassador Majunga Yoamador, last time he died in Juba because there was no electricity. This was during the fuel crisis, and the generator was turned off, and he was on life support. This is the environment. If you look at other basic health indicators, look at the maternal mortality rate. Instead of going down, it has actually been going up. The same thing with infant mortality rate. You look at the death of children under the age of 5. This has been going up. If you look at poverty, look at the economic indicators. Poverty went up enormously. When we got our independence in 2011, poverty rate was only 50% of the population. Right now, is 90% of the population. In fact, 9 out of 10 South Sudanese people live below $1 per day. If there is really a government, can you say there is a government? Roads. What do you see going on, the so-called roads that are being built by ARC? They're not really building roads. They're using less than 5% of the funds that they actually receive from the government to build the road. But the rest of the money come back to candid at night. Bolmil bring the money, give it to candid put it in his pocket. And then now he calls people one by one and buy you. That is how he has been able to keep himself in power, since he has not built any real institutions that can actually protect the government. Look at the justice system. The entire justice system has been politicized. We have been reading now for several months the case of Maulana Kirichol. Maulana Kirichol, he has been having a case with the national security, where the national security has essentially occupied his land. And although the judges have been ordering that the national security vacate these premises, they have been refusing. Every time they are ordered, they are summoned to come, they don't come, because nobody can make them come. And they can just basically pretend that they have not had anything. After all, who is going to make them do anything? Right? There's no justice. If you look in the countryside, right, you have all these crises that are happening, and no one is held accountable. No one is ever held accountable. In Juba, national security has made itself the unknown gunman. They have been going around shooting people in broad daylight. Everybody knows who is doing it, is the national security, but no one can hold them accountable. People are disappeared. We know very well what happened with the case of Dong Samuel. In fact, the UN has gone to the extent of publishing a very detailed investigation. And then at the same time, the US government, when it sanctioned a number of individuals that were involved, it detailed what actually happened with them. No one was held accountable. No one was held accountable. You have Chief Justice Chanrej Madut, who has been attending SPLM rallies. When Kidid was endorsed in WOW, he was right there, chanting and dancing and celebrating that Kidid has been endorsed. It's the same thing when Kidid came up with his unconstitutional decree and divided the country into 28 states. It was the same Chief Justice that wrote a congratulatory letter as the chairman of a One-Chan community, congratulating the president. And then when the case was brought before him by Lama Akol, he could not even accept to be told to recuse himself from hearing the case. Is that a government? You have a parliament a parliament that is headed by an individual that was never elected during the parliament, right? The current speaker of the parliament during the last elections of 2010, before we became independent, Jema, she ran for the governorship of Western Equatoria State. She didn't even run to be a member of parliament. And she lost that election to Bakasoro. But because we have a parliament in which individuals are appointed, somehow she got herself appointed to become a member of parliament, and slowly and slowly and slowly, she became the speaker. Imagine someone who did not even run for a position of MP ending up becoming a speaker. Right? That is it. And then, on top of that, you have a parliament that have been subordinated to executive. They are told what to do by the president. They don't have a will of their own. When Anthony Lino Makana was the speaker, he was giving the report to the president like this, as if he's a soldier under Salva Kiir, not knowing that parliament is a different branch of the government that is supposed to hold the executive accountable. You have a parliament that passed a budget, but is a budget that is never honored by the executive. You have Ministry of Finance literally asking people for 5, 10%, 15% for you to get your money. You heard it from Uncle Alewa Yang. I learned it when he spoke last time. He told you that when you go to parliament, whether you are a governor, whether you are a ministry, whether you are a businessman, you have to pay these people in the Ministry of Finance 10%, 15% for you to get your money. That is the reality. Is that a government? Is that a government? You have a parliament that is always threatened by the executive. You have a parliament that every time they're just doing extension, extending the term of the president, extending their own term so that they remain there. Is that a government? No. Let's look at the bureaucracy, the so-called civil service. You have a civil service that is entirely politicized. You have president not only appointing the undersecretaries by degrees, which never happen anywhere in the world. Just see Kenya, look at Uganda. Permanent secretaries of the ministries are not appointed by the president because they are civil servants. They're supposed to be professionals. They're supposed to be selected based on their technical expertise, not based on political allegiance. You have individuals that are completely clueless, psychopaths, that are every time appointed to be undersecretaries. You have director generals appointed by the president. You have directors appointed by the president. Example, look at the Nile Pad. It's supposed to be an oil company. It's supposed to have a board, and that board is supposed to interview who will be the head of it, who will be the CEO. But now it is basically the president running it as if it is part of his family. He appoints whoever that is going to run it. Is that really a government? Can you say that this is a government? And then on top of that, you have a civil service where 66% of them cannot do a basic arithmetic. When we did the comprehensive evaluation of the government of South Sudan back in 2011, we found that 2/3 of the parliament of the civil service could not do a basic mathematic problem. 27 plus 19. They could not give it the answer. And these are directors, director generals, assistant directors. They could not give you an answer. They could not write a basic sentence in English. Basic sentence in English. And these are the people that are supposed to be planning for the government. Is that a government? Go to the states. Now you have states that are basically being run by individuals that have no accountability whatsoever. You have, for example, in Jonglei State, where the governor and the Minister of Education have been stealing all the funds that are meant for education, for the primary school education, and for the healthcare. You have now a civil service that is not paid by the government. You have a military that is not paid by the government. You have basically a military that is factionalized. It's supposed to bring the different factions together into the so-called necessary unified forces. But every time you see a defection from this group to that group and back and forth and back and forth. Is that a government? Is that even a government? Let's look at the foreign service. Foreign service, they have not been paid for more than 30 months. 30 months, that is almost 3 years without salaries. Bunch of them here are loitering around. If you go to London, you go to Brussels, Germany, is a complete shame. They have been kicked out of the apartments because they have not been able to pay rent. Many of them, probably, if there were any secrets in the government, would have been bought off by other governments and made to be spies on the government of South Sudan because they are not getting paid. And then on top of that, you have a bunch of them that are appointed without any qualification, just because they happen to have relatives in the government that are powerful enough or have access to Salva Kiir. They're appointed as ambassadors, although they are clueless and they have no relation whatsoever. They have no diplomatic relations. They have no personal relationship that they have built. Is that a government? So which part of it is really a government? Nowhere. There is no part completely. You look at the executive, you look at the judiciary, you look at the parliament, and then even within the executive, you look at different branches. None of it is functioning. Office of the president is run by a convicted criminal, someone who was arrested for stealing the money from the office of the president. Yel Lul. Yel Lul was previously the executive director for the office of the president. Then he, Mayen Wall, and a bunch of them conspire to forge the signature of the president, stole millions and millions of dollars from the central bank. They were caught, and then they were taken to court, and then they were sentenced to life in prison. But somehow they managed to get out of jail, and then they found their way to be appointed into the government. The other one is undersecretary in the Ministry of Petroleum, so they appointed back to come and steal. And then Yell is now reappointed to be the chief administrator in the office of the president. It's not a government. It's a gang of thieves, psychopaths, and murderers. And we are glad that Salva Kiir himself has finally accepted the reality that he's running a thievery institution that is devoted simply to psychopathy and thieving. That is it. Look at how the petroleum sector is operating. The whole of Upper Nile State, Unity State, there is all the waste that is floating all over the ground. Kids are being born with all kinds of deformities. People are developing these weird diseases that have never happened in the history of our people. And the money is disappearing. Waste is being dumped into the Nile. It's killing everything. It's killing the fish. It's affecting the land. This used to be one of the most fertile lands in the country. Now nothing can even grow there. Nothing can grow there. Nothing can grow whatsoever. Even mushrooms that grow everywhere, they cannot grow there anymore because the land is completely polluted. And all this time, there have been reports after reports that confirm that the toxic level is too high. And this is going to result in a complete destruction of those societies. What have the government been doing? Hiding it. And this is not just only the Salva Kiir himself, even sons of those land who come from Ruweng, who come from Unity State, who come from Upper Nile State. They know this fact, but everyone is looking for their own neck. No one cares about the whole society. Is that a government? Can you say you have a government there in South Sudan? No, it's not a government. It's a mafia. Without institution, you have now, for example, there's no even clear line of reporting. Somebody can bypass somebody and go and talk to Kiir as long as they are relatives and they are part of the network of thieves around. That's not a government. You have Kiir giving contracts directly to his family members, to his daughters. Like Adud, for example, now she's running what is it called? She's running the taxation system, the immigration system. She's the one that get the money, and now she decides how much to keep and how much to give back to the government. Is that a government? So this is not a government. And Salva Kiir has finally accepted that he has been running a mafia, and this mafia is in which he is the head. He's surrounded by thieves, murderers, relatives, and psychopaths. So now, those of you that have been disputing, our argument when we keep saying that this country is not moving anywhere because it's not being run by anybody, it's just floating in the sky. What do you have to say now? That your boss himself has finally accepted the truth, that he has not been running any real government, he has not formed any government. What is bizarre in his statement is that instead of accepting the truth, which he has done, and then stepping down so that South Sudanese people can actually establish a government that can work for them, he wants to hang on to power. He somehow thinks then you still have the chance to form the government. You still have a chance to form the government. How the hell does he think about that? He has been in power literally for 19 years. 19 years and he could not form a power. He could not form a government that can actually hold the country together. We have been an independent country for 13 years. He has not been able to establish a government that runs. So, does he think he still can do it? When he is that age, all of you, you know how old he is. The way he walks, he can't even lift his foot. You can't lift his foot. Obviously, you know some of the other embarrassment that has happened. He's completely gone. He cannot do anything. He cannot control anybody. He cannot control his own body. You know that. He's a person who cannot control his own body because, there are certain basic functions that your body can just control. And if you can't control that, then what can you really control? Really? So instead of him accepting the reality and then leaving so that the South Sudanese people can figure out how can they actually establish a government that works for them, he wants to hang on. He wants to hang on because he believes lately he has been appointing some young people into the government. Right? What he doesn't understand, there is an uncle of mine called Maniel. Maniel Malenga Maniel. Maniel Nachol. He has a song where he said, he said that a child of a thief, the eyes of the child of a thief looks like the eyes of the thief. The eyes of the child of a murderer looks like the eye of the murderer. So if you have these people that are being appointed by candid, people that he has baptized in his mafia of gangsterism, thievery, murdering, even if they are young, and this is the system that they come through, will these people ever do anything different? Will a child of the lion behave like a lamb? Will a child of a lion behave like a lamb? What about a child of a hyena? Will the child of a hyena start behaving like a cow? Where does that happen? These are people that have been raised within that system. They have been taught thievery. From the very beginning, I would have respected some of them if they had left. Like some of us, when South Sudan became independent, we were excited because we have fought for many years to create our own country. We joined the government. I personally joined the government in 2011, immediately after the independence, because I was excited to try whatever I can to apply my skills so that we can build a government that can function for South Sudanese people. But 2 years later, it became clear to me that candid was not interested in actually doing anything remotely compared to the objectives for which we fought for 21 years. So I left. But some of these people, they realized that, but then they saw that this was an opportunity for corruption, to steal the money. So they stayed in. And now, even though you have a minister of finance in his 40s, a governor of the central bank in his 40s, whatever in their 40s, but they have grown up in that system. What do you think they know? Do you think they know anything called reform? They only know thievery. They only know gangsterism. They only know how to steal the money, how to get the money to Bol Mill so that at night the money come back to candid. They know how to make a dude happy so that they can remain in their position. That is it. That is not that when we talk about a generational change in South Sudan, that is not what we were talking about. We wanted a complete overhaul of the system, not for us to be groomed and promoted by murderers and by thieves. Because if you are groomed by a thief, you become a thief. If you are groomed by a murderer, you become a murderer. So we had to completely get rid of the system, cut the head off, and then begin differently, with the new values, with new thinking, with new attitude, with new mode of operation. So it's not about young. That is not the idea. When some of us were talking about generational exit, it was not essentially about age. It was also primarily about the mind and the way people think, so that people think in a modern fashion, how to actually build a system that can hold any individual accountable. That was the idea. And that it doesn't require necessarily people that are physically young. You can be physically young and rotten in the head. If you have people that have been part of the thievery, like the other day we saw the Minister of Finance was donating millions and millions of pounds for something that was being done in Warab State. Is that money from his personal pocket? Or is that money coming from the Ministry of Finance and from the budget of South Sudan? These are relevant questions. So it's not necessarily about age, and you have somebody, you are now bringing young people with like their mouth. Huh? These are the people that he said last time that when they see money, their hand begin to shake. So if you bring those people, even if they are young, and their hand is shaking when they see money, do you think that is going to change anything? Yeah? People that have never said no to candid. After 19 years of failing the South Sudanese people, of turning them against each other, arming them so that they can kill each other, people that have been quiet about that have been praising that have been calling him a hero, a guy that is synonymous with failure. If you Google in the future the name of Salva Kiir, it would be synonymous with failure and shame. People who have never criticized that have never said anything about that, can they really change that? Because they see him as a hero. And if he's a hero with all the failure that we have talked about, how can they do anything but repeat the same thing that they learned from him? So you see what he's trying to do. He's trying to appeal to the young people by bringing people that look like you, but in their head, they're just as rotten as he is. So you cannot allow yourself to be duped by this. Candid has no chance whatsoever. He has no capacity whatsoever of establishing a real government in South Sudan, no matter what he appoints. I said last time, even if Candid appoint Jesus Christ, Mohammed, Buddha, and Mundeng, and bring them in, there is no way whatsoever anything will change in South Sudan as long as Candid remains the president. The only opportunity for change to really turn things around in South Sudan is, first of all, remove Candid. That is the beginning. Candid has to be sent away. He has to be sent home to his retirement. He has to go to Akun and stay in his village. If they want to make him a chief there, let them make him a chief. If they want to make him a spear master, let them make him a spear master. You have seen how people have been trying to excuse his failures by blaming random things. Yeah? Now there is this case of a Jaiwir that has dominated the media, that somehow Candid was bewitched. Candid has been engaging with his spiritual masters and witchcraft for the entirety of his life. In fact, that is the only way he actually managed to get to where he is. He has been using witchcraft his entire life. Back during the war, all during this time, this is what has been happening. How do you blame anybody for that? All you need to do, my people, is read the book of Tim Edwards. The book of Tim Edwards is available for free. Just ask anybody on WhatsApp group to send you the book. It's called The Bloody Nile. In that book, you will find all of these things that people are talking about. If it is witchcraft, it's not a Chaiwir that introduced witchcraft into Candid's circle. I told you a story the other day, just last year, when they brought a guy from Benin in West Africa, a guy who came with a goat that eats fish. Just imagine, goats are supposed to be vegetarian. They eat grass. But they brought a goat from Benin that eats fish. And they put the goat in the 5-star hotel, in the Pyramid Hotel, with the guy. And then each of the guys around Candid Circle comes with 7 fish. 7 fish. Then the goat will eat the 7 fish. And then after that, the goat will start making noise. Meh, meh, meh. And then now, the guy who is the prophet will pretend to be interpreting what the goat is saying. And then he will be pronouncing some article. The guy ended up staying there for more than a month in the Pyramid Hotel. Was it a Jaiwir that arranged for this guy to come? We know very well every single time there are witchcraft that are happening in Kidd's house. All you have to do is read the book of Tim Edwards. This has been how Kidd has been managed this whole time. You cannot blame a Jaiwir for it. If it is womanizing and going after young girls, read the same book. Tim Edwards, you know, they talk about it. Even the so-called disease that Kidd has. Everybody knows about it. Everybody knows about it. His issues. And then he has been passing on these diseases to these young girls all this time. Read the book of Tim Edwards. Kawajat knows about these things. It's not something that is hidden within the circle. Last time when you heard the tape of Dengmalo Obakonye, was it a Jaiwir that did it? This thing has been happening the whole time. Everybody knows. Witchcraft. Last time when TB Joshua came, Kidd went to the airport to welcome TB Joshua. Huh? He went to the airport to welcome the TB Joshua. And TB Joshua is a con man. So these are the kind of people that actually attract Kidd. These are the people that he enjoys. So you cannot make excuse for his own deficiency. The guy has nothing. He has nothing to offer to the people of South Sudan. And this is what we have been trying to say all this time. The only thing he's offering is opportunity for thieves and for criminals to hijack the entire country, which they have done. They have hijacked the entire country. And now, the whole thing is collapsing. And they are looking for somebody to blame. So this is so easy to find somebody who is vulnerable that can be blamed for the failures of Kidd. Who among them has not been practicing witchcraft? Huh? All of them. Anybody within the circle of Kidd have been practicing witchcraft. Whether it is a Kolokur or whoever, they're all busy going there. In fact, right now in Warab, if you want to have money, the most profitable profession is to pretend that you are a spear master. And you start putting on a red shirt and a red jalabia, and you get yourself 2 or 3 spears, and then you start pronouncing some crazy things. Yes. Then now people will hear about it. They're like, well, there is Fizol Gowi has come up and he has emerged. You need to go and talk to him so that you can keep Kidd in power. This is the way it has been done, Ya Jama. So you cannot go and blame other people for failures of Kidd. And this is why I said all this time, his entire life, he claimed he's 72. He may be 80. Nobody knows really how old it is. He may be 80 years old. All his entire life, he has always ducked responsibility. He will go and create a massive failure here in the front of you. And then he will blame, he will look for other people to blame. Even the war in 2013, he started blaming other people. And he's the one who engineered it. Every single situation, he engineered it. Economic collapse, he's the one who engineers it. And then he will try to look for somebody to blame for his problem. He's a guy who cannot accept responsibility. So it was really surprising that he finally accepted that for 19 years as the head of Southern Sudan and for 13 years as the president of the independent South Sudan, the guy failed to establish a basic functional government. I was surprised that he accepted that. What now needs to happen is for him to go. Completely to go, because there is nothing he can do. It's an expired product. He cannot control his own bowels. He cannot control his own bowels. Ya Jama. This is the first thing you learn. The child, the time you become 2 years old, you control your bowel. Huh? You cannot just go anywhere. You know. So, and most importantly, during the national anthem, just to go. You can't. And the minute you realize you have reached that level, you have to understand that you are no longer useful. You are just a laughing joke. Every time I see him in front of the people, that is the image that comes to my head. Even now, when the national anthem is being played, ding, 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 ooh, I see it. This is what is in my head all the time. So he should excuse himself. He should excuse himself. I talked last time, I asked his clan people, those of Awanechan, to talk to him. They are not doing it. I don't know what is going on. Huh? They are not doing it. Somebody got to talk to him. Now he has reached a level where the president office is sending people to Mombasa to go and look for whoever has been crucified. Seriously? This is what Salva Kiir is up to? And you think he can still establish a government that can work? This is completely insane. Completely insane. So, ya Jama, what we need to do is this guy need to resign. If he cannot resign, we have to remove him. He has to be removed. Already, you see the guy is falling apart. Completely falling apart. His own body is falling apart. He can't control it. Now his people are running crazy with witchcraft. There are all these sacrifices that are happening. You saw the videos. It's completely ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. Huh? Completely ridiculous. So my people, let us remove this guy. You keep asking me how. And I keep telling you how it can happen. It need to happen. And how it will happen, the answer is with you. You have to think. What is it that you have? Yung token a yin. Index shunu. Katoken a yin and get biki din yai. Rana chi completely chen kitin beto. Chichen beto completely. Jarir yabeske sura. Ebo by jo tupe. Kobo by jo gornopen. Pochi jo game yen tung de. That runke tiego the one a kero low bakuma below University Sudan. Yenga embego eke jirekan. Yenga. Briak Machar go. You want to blame Riek Machar for that? For failing to establish a government for 19 years? Huh? You want to blame who? Peter Biar? You want to blame me because for 19 years you could not establish a government because and you want to blame somebody else? You want to blame Ajay? Huh? Seriously? That is what you want to do? It's time to accept responsibility. He's psychopath. You need to know that your guy is clueless. He's empty-headed. There is only head. Heart is what he has in his head. Finish. Mafitani. That is it. It's the time you wake up with the reality and accept the reality. It's the time you accept the reality. This guy gotta go. And we as people of South Sudan, we are tired of him. So you as a person, come up with a way that this man will be removed. He has been a complete disgrace. He has been infecting half of the country with weird diseases that cannot be cured. Everybody knows this. Read the book of Tim Edwards. It's there in the book directly. The guy who diagnosed him was made to disappear every time the blood is being changed. Huh? And then witchcraft. All kind of crap is being put in. Huh? Goats are being made to eat fish. Goats, they are vegetarians, ya Jama. Huh? They are being made to eat fish so that witchcraft is done. Seriously? It's time we end this shame. It's too much for the people of South Sudan. We deserve better. We deserve a better leader. And it's not about me becoming a leader. I told you last time, it's not about me becoming a leader. But it's about the country being respected again. It's about our dignity being restored. And it is our responsibility to make sure we do this because it has to be done. So, let me end by saying, you, as people of South Sudan, you have a responsibility to remove this man. By any means necessary. Any means necessary. Whatever means that you think is appropriate, this has to be done. We have to remove this shame. And I feel sometimes his own relatives should be the one really working hard to get rid of him. Because the more they keep him there, the more he brings shame to them, to the entire Dinka community, and to the entire Republic of South Sudan. So if you are closer to him, that shame is even more intense. I feel it here. And I'm from the other side of the Nile. I'm from the other side of the Nile. I'm not even close to that side of the Nile where he come from. I'm on the other side. And it's too much for me to bear. Huh? How do you bear it, people? How do you bear that? How do you bear? I cannot bear it. It's too much. And I'm on the other side of the Nile. And it's too much for us to bear on that side. So those of you on the other side, how do you bear it? You need to ask yourself serious question. This man is a complete joke. Complete joke. Now that he has accepted that he has not formed any government for the last 19 years, 13 years of independence, what else is he waiting to do? To do what? So that he finish all the oil? This is what he thinks? He has sold it in advance, so now you want to sell it until 2100 before he leaves? That is what he want to do? Yajama, come on. There has to be a limit. The guy has stolen billions. He has built himself houses in Morocco, in Ethiopia, in Dubai, in Malaysia, in South Africa. Everywhere he has bought a lot, billions of dollars. It's time for him to go so that people of South Sudan can reclaim their lost dignity. He has replaced that dignity with shame. It's time to get rid of him. And you have a responsibility to do it. And what you do, you use any means necessary. This year, 2024, is the year we are getting rid of Salva Kiir. Believe me, we are getting rid of him this year. Looking forward to seeing you. And please share the video, whether you are Matokrap or you are a patriot. Thank you. Share the video. And we look forward to seeing you on Wednesday. We are now doing Wednesday and Saturday. Share the video. Thank you. Next time.